We can no more ignore or suppress our connection to the warp than we could walk through a raging firestorm and imagine that we did not burn. We must master this gift, make a weapon of it, lest we be consumed by its fury. The Angels of Death unleash devastation from all manner of disciplines in order to achieve victory against their enemies. Bolters, blades, armored vehicles, and air support, culminating in a combined onslaught of the Emperor's will made manifest. Among their arsenal, there is one power above all, which, though devastating, threatens to undermine their purity from within. For today, we shall elucidate an order of Space Marines who wield the powers of the Immaterium against their foes. A cadre of warlocks whose supernatural abilities invite scorn from enemies and allies alike. The witch breed of the Adeptus Astartes, the Librarians. The earliest recorded use of Librarians within the midst of the Legiones Astartes difficult to pinpoint, due to the Master of Mankind's refusal to reveal the presence of chaos as a threat to humanity. The use of Psykers within his armies delved into treacherous waters wherein their dangers were not understood. The Dark Angels forging the path for each organization of Space Marines to follow, as was their influence as the First Legion. Their host of pentacles incorporated the War Witches whom survived the wars of Old Earth to aid in the unification of Terra. Such a grand experiment, whilst earning many victories for the First Legion, incurring calamitous losses of life, sanity, and cohesion within the host of Pentacles, Grandmaster Hector Frayne disbanded such an organization following the sealing of the Black Gate. Once more attempting to incorporate Psykers into the Legiones Astartes during the Great Crusade, Primarchs Magnus the Red, Jagatai Khan, and Sanguinius proposed a means to codify an organization which would harness their potential whilst establishing contingencies to prevent dangerous outbursts. The Librarian program, overseen by the greatest of all psychically gifted legions, the Thousand Sons, allowing for the training of their cousins to fully control their powers. Legions such as the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Ultramarines, Wordbearers, Lunar Wolves, Night Lords, Raven Guard, World Eaters, Salamanders, and Alpha Legion began to master their potential. Yet not all legions would entertain the notion of warlocks within their midst, most notably the Iron Warriors, Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, and Death Guard, whilst the peculiar Space Wolves Legion issued the trappings of the Librarian in favour of their Fenrisian mythos. As the Emperor beheld many of his legions renew their effectiveness in conquest with the addition of such potent Psykers, regardless, a nagging doubt clawed at the Master of Mankind's forts, knowing the true threat which lurked within the tides of the warp. Yet as the close of the Great Crusade drew near, tensions rose as a result of the actions of the Thousand Sons. The widespread, flesh-change mutations of their warriors, seen as an abomination too far to sanction the use of psychic powers. A great conclave would be called to decide the fate of the Librarian Creed. Champions and detractors of Space Marine Psykers convening during the Council of Nicaea during 001.M31. The presiding of the Emperor, Malcador the Sigillite, Fabricator General Kelbor Hal, Lord Militants Tabor Ludovisia, Haldane Malon, Grand Admiral Constanza Suati Falcon, Oculex Magister Jalisco de Raikos Huerta, and Captain General Constantin Valdor deciding the fate of the Librarians. Though Magnus the Red, Stormseer Targutai Yasugai, and other proponents of the Librarium argued that such powers were too invaluable to censor, while the debate hinged on the dangers of the misuse of such abilities, many opposed the motion as a means to censure Magnus the Red. Mortarion of the Death Guard Legion, born among a planet of necromancers, misusing the powers of the warp, ardently decrying the use of Librarians. The Wolf Priest, Ophir Weirdmake, and his kindred similarly lambasted the use of psychic powers, claiming their own ranks to draw from the spirit of Fenris rather than the Immaterium. Evidence brought to the attention of the Emperor that Magnus the Red had violated his promise to abstain from experimenting with sorceries, in stark violation of the Emperor's decade-standing command. All talk of compromise for the Librarian Order was forfeit. The motion to ban the use of all Psykers within the Legiones Astartes and Imperial Army carried, with exception to irreplaceable organizations such as the Navigator Houses and Astropaths. Every Librarian of the Legiones Astartes, by order of the Master of Mankind, disconnecting their psychic hoods henceforth, swearing oaths to never use their powers again. Each rejoined the ranks of their brethren as battle line infantry of no distinct specialization. The chaplain order, created to monitor each legion and ensure that the edicts of Nicaea were adhered to. The Thousand Sons departed to their homeworld of Prospero, refusing to allow such agents within their midst. Yet as the betrayal of the Horus heresy began, the loyalist forces of the Legiones Astartes realized that to fight the hordes of chaos without the aid of psychers would be a disadvantage too grave to endure. Though some pious souls would give their lives, refusing to ignore the proclamation of the Emperor to never re-establish the Librarian Creed, this new war of ruin would require all capable warriors to stand in defense of the Imperium. The Great Civil War, won in the name of the Imperium at great cost, the proposed compromises of the Council of Nicaea were adopted to allow for the Librarian Order to remain. The creation of Space Marine chapters, entailing a choice for each to choose whether or not to allow psychers within their midst. Each chapter screening aspirants for signs of talent as a psyker during their intake of neophytes. Though all, no matter their potential for specialization, must undertake the trials of a Space Marine aspirant, those destined for the Librarian must endure additional trials. On occasion, drafting promising recruits from the Scholastica Psychana should they show promise as a future luminary of the chapter. Should such candidates survive the trials of a Space Marine, they shall forge legacies tantamount to living legends of their chapter. Shielding their minds from the enticement of demonic possession every waking moment in their lives. To be a librarian is to tread the narrowest of paths to damnation, ostracized by one's kin for the sin of being susceptible to such malevolent predators. The willpower of such individuals, stronger than all but the most singular champions of their kin. Such warriors survive both physical and mental trauma, with the potential of a fate worse than death, should they fail in their duty. Residing within the fortress monastery of their chapter when not deployed to active war zones. The Sanctuary of the Librarian allows each librarian to catalogue the deeds of their kindred within a vast archive of tomes, data crystals, and parchments. Aided by untold servitors devoted to the upkeep of such a repository, each chapter's collective knowledge and history is the responsibility of their librarians, unless forbidding the adoption of such psychers within their creed. Maintaining utmost secrecy beyond the sight of even the most high-ranking administratum clerks or learned imperial scholars, the lore contained within each librarian is intended only for the eyes of the chapter. Chapter masters often heeding the wisdom contained within such Athenaeum to guide their actions. The most dangerous artifacts of the chapter are stored within the librarian's innermost chamber, fit only for the eyes of their chief librarian. Establishing smaller librarians within each battle barge of a chapter's fleet to allow for mobile sanctuaries of lore during campaigns. None know for certain when a particular data slate, memnoslate, or dusty book may provide invaluable insight to vanquish impending foes. The central pillar of the majority of librarians, containing a copy of the Codex Astartes within a stasis plinth. Many a Space Marine, whether young or old, has found solace from studying the writings of Rabute Gilliman during the long journeys to future war zones. When deployed in battle, librarians are a truly powerful force to be reckoned with. Their ceramite fists wreathed in lightning, weaving telekinetic force, or summoning ravaging storms, a power which many a foe sees as awe-inspiring. Deadly with bolter, blade, and arcana alike, the variety of devastation capable of being unleashed by a librarian exceeds all other Space Marine specialists. The raw talent of many an epistolary, sundering entire armies with not a wound incurred to their person. Such unfettered power, inviting the presence of warp entities a chance to overwhelm or devour the souls of such Astartes. One need only look to the Thousand Sons Legion for cautionary tales aplenty on the misuse of warp sorcery. Never trusted implicitly by their peers, no matter how strong their bonds of camaraderie, though librarians are not estranged in the manner of tech marines by virtue of their dual allegiances, they are nonetheless feared as much as they are respected. Librarians of the rank of Lexicanum, forbidden to use their powers during battle due to the risk involved by their lack of mastery. While many would cite their ability to unleash elemental attacks against their foes, Codicias and above also utilize the ability known as the Litany of Sight Beyond Sight to observe the battlefield from a bird's eye view. Exposing their third eye upon their forehead during such a ritual, such uncanny mutations do little to set at ease their peers, even if such wounds, wreathed in warped lightning, are only temporary. Gifted in the arts of telepathy, librarians also send communications across the vastness of space, alike to the capabilities of an astropath, Yet such messages are often used sparingly due to the myriad other tasks a librarian can undertake when astropaths are present. Using the ability known as Compel to manipulate others to act against their own best interests, librarians, should it be required, can also dominate the minds of their enemies, puppeting their actions to enact their will. Inspiring their allies by projecting waves which becalm their senses, librarians can also mind probe those around them to identify surface emotions and even mind scan unseen entities to gather intelligence or enough the true intent of those that surround them. While many a lowly being's mind can be read like an open book, more shrewd beings employ the use of psychic shields to protect themselves from the librarian's powers. Capable of reading the Emperor's Tarot to gain insight on future events, their talent for augury requires a second individual during such readings in order to glean what the future holds for their subject. Their powers of divination, able to track persons or specific objects of value. The more familiar the librarian is with their charge, the stronger their ability is to locate their subject, especially should they have access to their target's true name or their intended goal. By lifting the veil, a librarian's art of psychometry can harness traces of immaterial energies and relive past events using objects as catalysts. Every living being or object of power leaving more potent visions, the greater their psychic presence. Their perception of future events, allowing for the creation of possibility shields, which attempts to ensure certain desirable outcomes. Each living entity's personal aura subtly projects their unconscious soul into the warp, allowing librarians to conduct readings which allows them to study their nature. When pressed to conduct battlefield duties, librarians can enact Avenger rituals, which summon long-slain ancestors of the chapter, wreathed in warp fire, to incinerate their foes with manifested vengeance. Protecting their allies by conjuring force domes made of shimmering light. The radius of their shell can protect from all manner of typical firepower and even environmental hazards, yet is susceptible to melee combatants or enemy charges. Their gaze of infinity, allowing librarians to create rifts wherein their allies can venture. These portals remain open for only a short time or until their conjurer steps through, and are so exhausting to create that often those who cast them typically require 12 hours of recovery before they can be cast again. Capable of sheathing their limbs in impenetrable energies using the arts of the Iron Arm, librarians can block the keenest of blades using such a technique, yet precludes them from wielding a weapon due to its temporary inflexibility. Able to tamper with vehicles and terminals using their machine curse incantations, whether a humble servitor, firearm, or super heavy battle tank. Such an affliction sows mayhem within the object's machine spirit, allowing for threats to be pacified, even if only temporarily. The Might of the Ancients ritual, infusing a librarian's body with raw immaterial energies. With their psychic abilities and physical strength bolstered to abnormal levels, their deadliness in melee combat exceeds even that of the greatest duelists. Smiting their foes with lightning, which leaps from their fingertips. During the most dire of circumstances, the creation of a vortex of doom is created from the collective raw psychic power of a librarian. This renders reality typically 2 meters in diameter, consuming all within its wake as its conjurer loses control of its ravenous hunger. While many of the aforementioned powers of a librarian are usable by all should they spend time mastering such techniques, every Psyker of the Adeptus Astartes must specialize in specific disciplines. Scions of the Librarius discipline, further bolstering pre-established abilities. The Emperor's Wrath technique galvanizes their ability to smite their foes with lightning, now capable of piercing dense armor. Mastery of the Veil of Time, allowing librarians to foresee the flow of battles to come. By studying the strands of fate, they are forewarned of deadly encounters or exploitable weaknesses. The Fury of the Ancients ritual, summoning legendary figures of the chapter's homeworld. Their imbibing with psychic energies imbues them with terrible strength. Librarius disciples drawing from their psychic reserves to create a psychic fortress around both their own minds and those of their peers. This bastion against psychic attack can also be manifested into a field which repels immaterial assaults. The Might of Heroes, allowing a librarian to grant the wielder or another librarian with the Emperor's vengeance. Their psychic forms burgeon with the power of the Immaterium, exceeding the superhuman capabilities of even the Might of Ancients' power. Unleashing a psychic scourge upon their foes, which harries the willpower of enemy psychers. The minds of such witches are immolated in a blast of psychic fury, scouring them of arcane knowledge. Last of the Librarium disciples' techniques is that of the Null Zone, a means to use a librarian's mind to demolish their enemies' mystical and technological defenses, rendering them vulnerable to the killing blow. The Technomancy disciple, devoted to combating synthetic machines, are like to how standard Librarian Arcana attacks organic beings. Whether weapons, vehicles, or even vast fortification structures, the powers of a Technomancer bring low all perversions of the Omnissiah's will and strengthen pious machine spirits. The Blessing of the Machine technique, coaxing dormant machine spirits to life, otherwise seemingly ineffective machines of war, awaken renewed of purpose, transforming them into far more dangerous armaments. Channeling the Omnissiah's will during the Fury of Mars ritual, vast immaterial energies pulse in waves, purging impure machinery of their motive force, which cannot be observed with the naked eye. Capable of communing with machine spirits to reforge damaged vehicles back to working order, the pains of such weapons of war are soothed, as warp energies repair damage sustained to their bodies. Inflicting machine curses onto enemies which pierce even the densest armor, allowing for their vulnerable components to be manipulated. Less subtle techniques, such as the Machine Flens, allows a Technomancer to shred such targets with their mind, using its own torn debris as a means to injure nearby enemy combatants. Possessing machine spirits as Technomancers subvert the machine. Temporary states of confusion or deactivation allow for allies to destroy or even sabotage such targets. Last of the Technomancy disciplines is that of Warp Metal Armor, a conglomeration of metal fused with warp sorcery which coats allied vehicles in a protective second skin, which shrugs off all but the most potent of firepower. The Fulmination discipline, focusing on the art of warp electricity. While all librarians have a passing capability to cast lightning from their fingertips, a Fulminator can employ an array of techniques using such crackling energies. Casting arcs of lightning using Electrosurge with nary a gesture. More advanced techniques, such as the Electropulse, concentrate such energies into enormous electromagnetic cyclones, which detonate into shockwaves which can overload even the most advanced machine circuits. Protecting themselves from bullets, melee attacks, and blasts of shrapnel with electro-shields. Fulminators can also shift their entire bodies using electro-displacement, allowing for sudden switching of allies to one another's positions. Pulverizing their enemies using fists of lightning as coronas of energy spill from their knuckles. Arcs of devastating energy course with each volley, spreading destruction through nearby enemy ranks. Casting bolts of energy with their lightning arc attacks, which spill from the librarian's eyes and mouth. Their use of magnokinesis projects a protective bubble around allies, as a levitating force repositions such comrades to a more tactically superior position. The Geokinesis discipline, focusing on the mastery of geokine energies of earth and stone. The ability to rely on the earth beneath one's feet for weapons aplenty is a worthwhile pursuit, as enemies struggle to rely upon terrain which tears beneath them. Geomancers, capable of opening a chasm with their hands, opening lava channels to swallow their enemies. Such librarians can also heal the wounds of their kin, drawing upon the earth blood of the soil, which draws upon the planet's life force. Stamping down to create a landquake, capable of toppling even the most sure-footed opponents from their feet. Masters of Geomancy can also create anomalies, known as a phase form, which allows allies to pass through objects whilst out of sync with the laws of real space. The Scorched Earth technique, allowing once stable Earth to be transformed into a morass of molten lava and fire. The Shifting Worldscape technique allows all who stand upon affected ground to be transported to new locations via intense telekinesis. Last of the Geomancer's powers is that of the Warpquake, a means to destroy a single fortification by collapsing its foundations into a singularity of force, conjured by the balling of a librarian's hand into a tight fist. Last of the librarian specializations is that of the Obscuration discipline, a creed established by the Primaris Vanguard librarians, which specializes in the arts of illusion and espionage. Capable of conjuring hallucinations which instill panic and terror within the hearts of their foes, apparitions of long-dead allies, past horrors, and fearsome enemies harry the minds of those affected. Peering into the psyche of their enemies as they conduct mind raids, disciples of Obscuration glean battle plans, hidden deployments, and tactical information from high-ranking officers as a form of psychic interrogation, often resulting in cerebral trauma. Shrouding their forms in warp energies to appear as nothing more than shadows to their adversaries. Their use of soul sight manifests as a light which glows from their eyes, allowing such librarians to perceive the souls of their targets alike to flaming beacons. Passing through time using the temporal corridor technique, Obscuration librarians enable their allies to traverse the battlefield with supernatural speed, having created an invisible tunnel through the present. Last of their abilities is that of the Tenebrous Curse, a psychic bolt which spears through the minds of their enemies, which causes the victim's own shadow to wrestle their body to the ground, seeking to snuff the life from them. The Path of a Librarian, a rare journey wherein only 1 in 1,000 aspirants succeeds. Each step of the way is laced with trials, training, and pitfalls which can lead to damnation. Beginning their progression as the lowest rank of Lexicanium, these young psykers are restrained from battle until they have achieved acceptable control of their powers. Reporting to the codicias of their chapter as they conduct tasks such as cataloguing texts of the Librarius, preparing battle reports, or maintaining the more mundane requirements of the Librarian. On the rare occasion where a Lexicani is deployed onto battle, their abilities are monitored closely for signs of a lack of control. Their lack of psychic hoods making them more susceptible to the perils inherent with warp manipulation. In time, ascending to the rank of Codicia, which entails more regular assignment to combat duties. Much of their time outside of battle is spent within the Librarius, organizing their junior Lexicani's duties and providing strategic overviews for battles to come. Close to realizing the full potential of their powers whilst advancing upon the path of the Codicia, few psykers within the mortal ranks of the Imperium can match the power of such a Librarian. Trained by epistolaries as they conjure multiple psychic abilities during combat to test their mastery of their craft, should promising codicias remain resolute in their duty to the Imperium whilst defying the allure of chaos, they shall eventually ascend in rank. The rank of epistolary, the final position which most librarians shall ever achieve. These hardened veterans of untold war zones are true masters of the psychic arts, and among the most respected warriors of their chapters. The deadliest psykers which any chapter can provide to the battlefield, epistolaries are also responsible for relaying psychic communications between senior officers of the chapter and consulting on all manner of psychic phenomena. Crucial to their chapter's strategic command as they organize mass planetary assaults, sharing of intel, and battle plans much more effectively than that of ordinary methods. Their ability to brief captains separated by voidcraft allows for instantaneous coordination. Honored for their position with the rare psychic hoods which augment their defensive capabilities, such as the state of understanding of the Imperium's tech savants that few know how to maintain such relics, and as such, only veterans are permitted to use them. The most powerful of all Space Marine psykers, known as Chief Librarians. These singular individuals are appointed only if a worthy candidate is available, with the position left vacant should no suitable successor be available. No less than psychic lords of the Adeptus Astartes, capable of the most miraculous of feats using their talent for witchcraft. These keepers of chapter lore guide their chapter master as their most trusted advisor through times of strife, using their encyclopedic knowledge to great effect. The strongest of all psykers within the chapter, who presides over the selection process and training of all aspirants who shall join his librarium. Each divines future events to steer his chapter's prosperity to new heights. Rarely deployed to the battlefield due to their more valuable responsibilities outside of battle, on the rare occasion they are called to war, the spectacle of a chief librarian's wrath is a sight to behold. Capable of destroying entire armies, conjuring ravenous storms, rivers of molten lava, or other calamitous manipulations of the environment, none know the potential dangers of the warp more than a chief librarian, and thus such a leader of mystics warns his junior officers of its dangers, whilst providing acts of his own mastery of the Immaterium. The Codex Librarian segment of the Codex Astartes, outlining the methods of training psykers within the ranks of the Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and Stormwardens chapters. Regardless, several Space Marine creeds diverge greatly in how they train their librarians. Some chapters such as the Black Templars, refusing to field librarians as a result of their disdain for mutants. Others such as the Marines Malevolent preclude their librarians from senior positions of their hierarchy due to their mistrust for psykers. The White Scars chapter, referring to their librarians as Zadian Aga or Stormseers. Their shamanistic traditions are upheld as sacrosanct by the warriors of Chagoris as they teach aspirants of the chapter the core beliefs passed down from their primarch, Jagatai Khan. Believing their powers to be interconnected with the animalistic spirits of both the land and the air, the mystics of Chagoris hold a special place as advisors of the chapter, and are revered by all within the fold of the White Scars. The Rune Priests of the Spaceballs chapter, similarly citing their powers to be connected to the spirit of their homeworld. Peculiarly, such warriors deny their manipulations of the warp, reputedly only drawing from the energies of Fenris, which many regard as baseless superstition. never establishing a librarius nor recording archives of their chapter's deeds. The rune priests of the route instead adhere to the Fenrisian tradition of their ancestors by reciting stories of their chapter's deeds, which live on through the collective memory of its living souls and sustained through oral tradition. Variants such as the Celestial Lions regarding their librarians as spirit walkers, whilst chief librarians of the Death Spectres are known as Messazar. The Silver Skulls chapter combine the role of librarian and chaplain in their prognosticators who seek to decipher the will of the Emperor. Librarians of the Spears of the Emperor's chapter regarded alike to their chaplains, apothecaries and techmarines with the collective term of druid. These black-clad mystics fight in unison with their kindred. The Grey Knights by far the most powerful psykers within the fold of the Imperium. Though every member of the Chamber Militant are required to have talents for warp manipulation, librarians do exist within their order. By far the most powerful psykers within the chapter, when in close proximity to their peers, their powers are unleashed by orders of magnitude capable of unleashing obscene displays of arcane might. The only chapter of psykers permitted to fight alongside the Black Templars due to their genetic ties to the Master of Mankind himself. Each time a Grey Knight librarian faces the forces of chaos, their powers enact a toll worthy of legend, as the great enemy languishes from its own essence, being turned against itself. Librarians seconded to the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, typically of the rank of Lexicanium. These most junior ranks of the Librarium use such an opportunity to achieve their full potential. Not only responsible for combat duties, but also guarding the most dangerous secrets of the Death Watch. The vaults of each watch fortress contains an archive of forbidden knowledge, which not even their respective watch commander is permitted access. The rare few Death Watch librarians of the rank of epistolary watching over such dangerous knowledge. Such veterans also advise their watch commanders and only enter their vault archives for insight during the direst of circumstances. Using their arts of prognostication to steer their kill teams towards successful outcomes. Their communication with far distant watch fortresses allows the Chamber Militant to exchange information and coordinate their forces effectively. In order to combat the myriad foes of the Imperium, both material and immaterial in nature, the weapons of a librarian must be capable of countering the most deadly foes imaginable. Though never truly defenseless by virtue of their psychic abilities, a librarian without armor, wards, or a trusty bolter is nevertheless unequipped to combat the perils of the void. For a librarian is an angel of death, first and foremost. Their powers regulated by their use of a psychic hood, which protects from the powers of their psychically gifted enemies' attacks, while simultaneously bolstering their own abilities. The wires which connect directly to the brain further galvanize the senses of a librarian, with those without hoods remaining susceptible to all manner of dangers. Sensing the arrival of interstellar voidcraft journeying through the warp, or feeling manipulations of the immaterium around them, the interwoven crystalline patterns, though staving off attacks from most demonic entities and enemy sorcerers, is not a foolproof technology. The raw power of a librarian, whilst donning a psychic hood exceeding that of even the Eldar Farseers. What librarians lack in comparative dexterity and grace is more than compensated by uncompromising brutality. Identified by their comrades by their use of blue-painted ceramite, with exception given to their left pauldron, which denotes their chapter iconography. Each bears the horned skull or Book of the Librarius icon on their right pauldron as a symbol of their arcane knowledge. Their white robes, marked with their rank, further adorned with yellow tabards or cloaks bearing bands of black, while a Lexicanium's band remains bare. Codicias add spikes or lightning bolts to their design, whilst epistolaries utilize both and add a skull below the band as a sign of their pedigree. Chief librarians honored by the freedom to display symbols which depict their own battle honors or deeds made to their chapter. Most librarians affix scrolls and parchments to their armor as a representation of their wisdom. Typically clad in a variety of standard suits of power armor, when deployed to Space Hulk incursions or missions requiring the utmost protection, librarians march into battle within Terminator armor painted in the same manner as lighter models. Modified to incorporate warp-sensitive crystals, similar to those implemented within psychic hoods within the fingertips and palms of such Terminator armor suits. Such additions allow librarians to maintain their psychic capabilities whilst within such dense panoplies. Carrying standard-issue weapons such as bolt pistols, plasma pistols, and combi weapons when needed, every librarian wields force weapons in battle which harness their psychic talents. Channeling their powers through their force weapon, whether a sword, axe, halberd, hammer, or staff. These weapons unleash devastation upon the librarians' foes, in excess to anything capable of all but the most legendary relics of the Space Marine armories. Primaris librarians, functioning in the same manner as their firstborn forebears, their war gear is regardless superior in both quality of protection and maneuverability. Clad in Mark X Tacticus power armor as standard, or Mark X Gravis armor when heavier protection is required. On occasion, Primaris librarians also utilize Mark X Phobos pattern armor, especially when deployed to covert operations benefiting from the use of camouflage cloaks. Yet no matter the weapon wielded by the Imperium, the role of the librarians is irreplaceable, for despite the distrust harbored by many a Space Marine for such enigmatic souls, their duty to combat the thralls of chaos using their own weapons against them is paramount.
Many have spoken of the evils of the Psyker, the sorcerer, and the witch. That the art is intrinsically wrong, simply because it can be used to perform terrible deeds. I say that one must instead consider that this evil is a projection of the fears of the many who do not understand the possibilities that await mankind if we can tame the dangers of this art. That it is this multitude of lesser sins. That is the real issue for this council.
This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The burden of the librarian is among the heaviest, for each and every day they face not only the perils of war, but the threat of eternal damnation of their souls. Wielding the essence of chaos for the betterment of mankind, regardless of their valor, many of their kindred are wary of their presence, knowing them to be susceptible to the corruptions of the warp. To play with fire is to invite the inferno, for those who endanger themselves for the good of others often incur the most grievous burns. Yet such souls are not invincible, and without support shall always falter. So should you meet such beacons of hope, be sure to aid them when you can, as thanks for their sacrifices made.